Joining us now, a member of the House Foreign Affairs Committee and, in fact, a former intelligence official, Democratic Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger of Virginia. Congresswoman, thank you so much for being up so early to start us off on this historic day as the president is set to meet with Putin. I'm just going to ask you to respond, first of all, to that stack of Republicans we saw talking about President Biden.
I mean, it's extraordinary that we had a Republican president, the former president, stand on stage in Helsinki next to President Putin and take the side of Putin over the reporting of U.S. intelligence officials. And the fact that now we see some of my Republican colleagues evidently forgetting the reality of that 4-year time when we saw former President Trump not acknowledge, not understand, not address the threat that was and continues to be Russia is extraordinary. And certainly we have seen President Biden take a strong stance. You mentioned the sanctions that he's already imposed in response to the hacking from Russia.
Do you have any concerns about that pipeline in particular? Are there any actions that President Biden has taken or not taken toward Russia that concern you at all?
So I was glad to see him impose sanctions, particularly after the SolarWinds hack. I do hope that in the conversations there will be a stern conversation about the fact that Russia continues to give safe harbor to criminal networks such as the group that perpetrated the Colonial Pipeline attack. But so far, I think President Biden has taken a strong, measured approach and, by all accounts, is well prepared to walk into the meeting today.
How do you think the president should balance the tension that exists kind of behind the scenes between Russia and China and how the U.S. wants to deal with China versus how Europe is a little bit more concerned about Russia because they're right there, right? A lot of NATO countries, for example, right there near these borders. I think there is some sense that we want to try to stabilize the relationship with Russia so that we can focus on Beijing. How does the president thread that needle?
So I don't think that the intent is to kind of do one thing so we can move on to something else. From a national security standpoint, you mentioned in the introduction, I'm a former CIA officer. From a diplomatic standpoint, now serving on the Foreign Affairs Committee, we can have concurrent relationships and ways of engaging various different either adversaries or partners. So I think the focus here is recognizing the long-term strategic threat that the Chinese government continues to pose to us and our Western allies, while also notably recognizing the continued threat that Russia poses through its hacking efforts, through its election interference. So they're just strategically and operationally different challenges that we face, and so we do need to approach them differently. Yeah,
one of the things that and I know we spoke about this briefly earlier this week, this idea of swapping in cyber attacks prisoners with the Russians, is that something you think the president should engage with or not?
That enters into a bit of a challenging territory. Certainly, we need to hold Russia to account for the hacking of vital U.S. Infrastructure and certainly for giving safe harbor to criminal networks that continue to perpetrate these ransomware attacks. In terms of what tools may exist in the president's toolbox, I think that is something that he should judiciously look at pulling out potentials for prisoner swaps. But that's, I think, a bit further down the road.
While I have you, let me ask you one question about some of the stuff that's gone on here at home, notably the January 6th commission and how Democrats in the House now may move forward. Nancy Pelosi, the speaker, met with committee chairs yesterday. Do you think there should be a select committee to investigate January 6th or not?
There has to be an effort, there has to be an investigation of January 6th. It was an attack on our nation's capital. People died. Police officers were injured. 140 police officers, Capitol Police and Metropolitan D.C. Police were injured. People lost fingers, lost eyes. Insurrectionists tried to stop us from certifying the election. We have to have an investigation. It would be my hope and expectation that it would be as bipartisan as possible. This isn't a partisan issue. It is the health of our democracy. It shouldn't be. So there has to be a committee and a commission on this. Unfortunately, we saw so many of my Republican colleagues were unwilling to vote on what had been a negotiated bipartisan commission structure modeled after 9/11 that Republican Representative Katko of New York and Representative Thompson put forth. And so in the absence of that, we have to move forward with a commission. And if this is the only way to get it, then, it's unfortunate that the Republicans were unwilling to vote on the negotiated one. But we have to understand what led to that day.
All right, Congresswoman Abigail Spanberger, thank you so much for getting up so early to be with us. I realize all of it is very new, thanks to science. We're very grateful to have you here. We're all getting used to our regular clothes, right? Thank you again.
Thank you.